Minnesota facts. If you live in Minnesota, you probably think you know this state pretty well. Lakes, cold winters, Minnesota nice. But most locals don't realize that Minnesota has more shoreline than California, that you can walk across the Mississippi River, and that one of the most recognizable foods in America was invented in a small Minnesota town. And stick around for fact number 6. You won't believe how Minnesota measures its lakes in the winter. These are just a few of the facts most Minnesotans don't know. Minnesota has a reputation for being simple and predictable. But once you look a little closer, this state is full of surprising details that even lifelong locals often miss. Here are Minnesota facts even locals don't know. Fact 1. Minnesota has more shoreline than California. Most people assume California has the most shoreline because of its massive coastline. But when you count every lake and river, Minnesota actually has more shoreline than California, by thousands of miles. And yes, this is where Wisconsin usually jumps in to argue they have more lakes. The difference is how states define a lake. Minnesota requires a minimum size, while Wisconsin counts things that are closer to very large puddles. However you count it, Minnesota's shoreline is hard to beat. Fact 2. The coldest temperature in the lower 48 was recorded in Minnesota in 1936, the town of Tower. Minnesota recorded a temperature of negative 60 degrees Fahrenheit. That's the coldest temperature ever recorded in the lower 48 states. At temperatures like that, exposed skin can freeze in just minutes, which explains why Minnesotans take winter preparation very seriously. Fact 3. You can walk across the Mississippi River in Minnesota. The Mississippi River begins in Minnesota at Lake Itasca. At its source, the river is so narrow and shallow that you can literally walk across it. Hard to believe that the same river eventually stretches over 2,300 miles to the Gulf of Mexico. Fact 4. There are places in Minnesota with no roads. The Boundary Waters Canoe Area Wilderness is one of the most remote places in the Midwest. There are no roads, no cars, and no permanent buildings. The only way in or out is by canoe or hiking. It's one of the largest protected wilderness areas in the United States. Fact 5. Minnesota has more golf courses per capita than any other state. Despite having winter for nearly half the year, Minnesota has more golf courses per person than any other state. It's also home to Hazeltine National Golf Club, one of the most famous courses in the country. Hazeltine has hosted major tournaments, including multiple PGA championships, the U.S. Open, and the Ryder Cup, putting Minnesota firmly on the global golf map. Fact 6. Minnesota requires all lakes to be measured during winter. In Minnesota, lakes are officially measured and documented during the winter months. That's because frozen surfaces make it easier for surveyors to calculate lake size and depth without interference from vegetation or wave activity. It's a process that's been in place for decades and is one reason Minnesota's lake data is considered so consistent. Fact 7. Spam was invented in Minnesota. Spam was invented in Austin, Minnesota by Hormel in 1937. Today, Minnesota is home to the Spam Museum, and Spam is sold in over 40 countries. Love it or hate it, it's one of Minnesota's most recognizable contributions to American food culture. Fact 8. The first indoor shopping mall was built in Minnesota Southdale Center. Edina was the first fully enclosed, climate-controlled shopping mall in the United States. It became the model for malls across the country, especially in cold weather states. Fact 9. Minnesota produces more turkeys than any other state. Minnesota leads the nation in turkey production. A major reason for that is Jennie O Turkey Store, which was founded in Minnesota and became one of the most recognizable turkey brands in the country. So, there's a good chance your Thanksgiving turkey has Minnesota roots. Fact 10. The Mall of America has its own zip code. The Mall of America is so large it has its own zip code. It includes hundreds of stores, dozens of restaurants, an indoor amusement park, and even an aquarium. Millions of people visit every year, and many locals still haven't seen all of it. Fact 11. Minnesota has one of the highest theater counts per capita. Minnesota consistently ranks near the top in theaters per person, second only to New York. From community theaters to major productions, live performance plays a big role in Minnesota culture. Fact 12. There are more than 11,000 lakes, depending how you count. The official slogan is the land of 10,000 lakes, but that number is conservative. Depending on the definition, Minnesota actually has over 11,800 lakes that are at least 10 acres in size. So the slogan is really just rounding down. Fact 13. Minnesota has an official accent dictionary. The Minnesota accent has been studied so extensively that it has its own dictionary. Words like ufta, hot dish, and you betcha are officially documented parts of regional speech. Fact 14. 3 major watersheds begin in Minnesota. In northern Minnesota, rainwater can flow to 3 different oceans depending on where it lands. One direction goes to the Gulf of Mexico, another to the Atlantic Ocean, and another to the Arctic Ocean. Very few places in the world share this geographic feature. Minnesota may seem familiar on the surface, but once you dig a little deeper, it turns out to be far more interesting and surprising than most people expect. If you learned something new, hit the like button. It helps more than you think. And if you enjoy facts like these, subscribe for more videos about places you think you already know, whether it's Minnesota or somewhere else entirely. Drop a comment with the state you're from, or let me know which state should be covered next.